So we can think about, for instance, employee well-being, putting in place things that are going to reward employees, show them that you value them, done a good job, that sort of thing. What if you then apply that to yourself? So what if you make sure every month, say, you put some time aside to treat yourself? Go, me, I can't go on screen. I've always been behind the scenes and suddenly having to do a little bit of a script. And it was like quite a big deal. Only a short, like just over a minute of what I do on a weekly basis. But I really had to gee myself up to get ready to do what's easiest. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't need lots of expensive software to do most of these things. Just start with something simple.
No, agreed. And welcome to the A Gamers. In this series of interviews, we'll explore the exciting world of business entrepreneurship by talking to the game changers, the risk takers, and the passionate small business owners who are out on the field daily making their dreams a reality. In every episode, we'll talk with small business owners from different backgrounds, each with unique stories, triumphs, setbacks, and lessons learned. From solopreneurs and micro businesses to entrepreneurs building their teams, we'll look inside their industries, markets, and strategies to create and grow their businesses. In this debut episode, we'll sit down with Lucy Spencer, the founder of Conscious Business Solutions. Lucy is a business consultant with a unique approach, focusing on helping companies improve employee retention and engagement with a holistic twist. She'll share her journey from working in corporate London to starting her own business and how she uses conscious business practices to transform companies. Whether you're an experienced business owner just starting or simply interested in entrepreneurship, we're here to inspire, educate, and empower you. So let's get started. Here we are with Lucy Spencer. Let's start with a little bit of an introduction about you and your business and how you started.
Absolutely. So my business is called Conscious Business Solutions. It's a business consultancy. I work with SMEs that are ready to overcome poor employee retention engagement. So something that a lot of companies need right now. And if you've seen the stats out there, something like a 33% attrition rate for people wanting to leave their job in the next 3 to 6 months. It's crazy. It's definitely something that a lot of people need out there. So I basically teach the leaders in these companies how to obtain happy, fulfilled employees that love where they work and that are committed to that company. I'm told often sounds like a HR solution, but it isn't really. I'm looking across the whole of the business. I'm looking at the systems, the governance practices, the strategies currently in place, the processes and procedures across the culture. So I see it as two sides of the business. Across the culture side of the business, where I'm looking at ways of working, so how that company operates, the business environment itself, and then more of the things that we'd consider as classic HR items like employee benefits and personal development. And I'm looking at all of this to put in place a very effective set of tools, which are conscious practices. And I do this with a bit of a holistic twist, just for good measure, to have an extra deep transformation in the companies I work with. So that's CBS. And you're saying about hearing how I came to start the business, right?
Yeah, that's right. It'd be lovely to hear a little bit about your origin story. What brought you to this in the first place?
Absolutely. So I started out working in corporate companies up in London for close to 20 years, I'd say. And for the majority of those years, for about a dozen years or so, I was a project manager. So I was in the middle of those companies, working with everybody in the company, but it was really my responsibility to make sure people were okay. The people that I was working with were happy, good to go, and we could complete our project on time. So that was a big thing I was tasked with. And a lot of what I did was around improving systems as well, which is why I've got a thing about systems. I love to make a system more effective. But it got to about 2017, and I'd started to look to learn things other than I was learning within the workplace. So I moved myself to learning some personal development bits and pieces, and I came across someone, became a mentor of mine, and she asked me in 2017, come work with me, project manager, I need your skill set, jump out of that and come and work with me. And I did. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done, jumping out of the corporate world to go work for a startup company. But it was somebody that I trusted and I believed in what we were doing. So it was a startup company that was going to work with adults. So it was an online school to teach adults the tools that they needed to overcome the issues that they have. So I learned a lot of energy tools. I learned about how the small business operates. It was my first chance to really look at, for instance, what goes on in the marketing department, how a social media is scheduled, all that sort of thing. And in 2020, I had moved on from that company and I had some friends get in touch with me and they said, starting off a business, can you help? We want you to be able to put in place all of the structure of a business, but with your conscious tools thrown in for good measure. So that's what I did. So it wasn't even an intentional, hey, I'm going to start a business today. It was very much people pulling me in and saying, right, we need your skill set. Please help. And I was happy to do it. So I was doing this on the side, really. I was doing some consultancy work at the same time. So this was very much a part time thing. And it got to last summer. And I thought, do you know what? I need to go all out. I need to work full time on this business. So I've been doing it ever since, really as a way to spread the word on conscious business practices. So I do things like this podcast, I write articles, just try and get the word out there about this new effective way of operating and go into clients' businesses or provide them with courses or workshops that I know are going to really be effective in upgrading the way they operate in their business.
That's like a great story, and it often happens in that sort of way. And it's interesting you mentioned startups. A lot of the people who are going to be listening to this are small or micro businesses, so they're not in the stage where they necessarily have or even thinking about things like employees and staff. They will be looking at maybe outsourcing some of their activities. So, where would you say would be the best place to start?
I would say, number one, first and foremost, always look at your purpose, why you operate in your business. And that will, when you get employees into your business, that's going to help give them direction. And it actually, these days, inspires your employees. It's amazing if you've got a really strong purpose, but it also will draw customers to you. If they know that you stand for something and this shows in all of your actions, they're going to want to work with you over Joe down the road who is just rolling along and not too bothered about what impact he's got on other people. So that's the first place I'd start. And always remember, just get started. Don't think, oh, I'm too small or what have you, because there are always things you can put in place like that, like the purpose. You can think about the ways you want to operate. So your code of ethics in reality. So the behaviors that you want to adhere to. And that again is going to attract people to you, both employees when it gets to that point, but customers want to work with somebody who they know is going to be honest with them and behave according to a set of principles that show that this is an ethical company. This company cares about our relationship and wants to behave in a way that is really going to be of benefit to both of us. And then there's also things you can think about. I was working with somebody earlier this year and they're saying, do you know what? I'm a micro business. So a lot of what you do doesn't apply because you're very much talking about employees and all that sort of thing. I'm like, okay, what if you treat yourself as an employee? What if you put in place things that are going to be beneficial to you? So we can think about, for instance, employee well-being, putting in place things that are going to reward employees, show them that you value them, done a good job, that sort of thing. What if you then apply that to yourself? So what if you make sure every month, say, you put some time aside to treat yourself, go shopping, buy yourself something nice to wear, book a spa afternoon, go out to a nice meal with a friend or family member, just to really treat yourself. Say, do you know what? I've been working hard this month. I deserve this. So you can put in place simple little things that show that you've got a conscious way of thinking, even when you don't have a team, even when you don't have employees.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it also stands for the idea of treating your business like a business rather than self employment, treating it as if it's a thing that has a life of its own outside of you. And like you say, I like the idea of you treating you as an employee of that organization that you're creating or the business you're creating. Also, I would imagine if you've got those kind of things set up for you, then it's easier to set them up when you do need to start to employ and encourage other people to come and work for you.
Exactly. It's like a snowball effect then. You just start put in place what you can and you're obtaining that mentality of operating in a more conscious way, being more aware of how your actions are going to impact, even if it's just yourself. And then you'll
Yeah.
be thinking about how it's going to impact others, think about how it impacts customers, suppliers, local community, whoever you want to involve in your business. It will just be something that naturally grows, but it's something that you have to really be conscious of. You need to have a plan because otherwise it can snowball into something that you don't want it to snowball into. So just have that plan and be aware of where you want to go. And yeah, just start putting in place those things that are going to really uplift your energy first.
Sounds like a good idea. And I think it's a great idea to start creating good habits from the get go rather than to try and change those potentially bad habits you might have picked up along the way and trying to address them. It's easier to try and start from scratch. So I love the idea that you mentioned of starting to treat your business as a business and you as an employee and give yourself the same benefits you would be giving to anyone who would be joining in and treat yourself as a part of the business, as an employee of
Mm.
the business. Just it's a great, I love that. Starting from how you mean to go on, which is potentially one of the beauties of starting to get into a business when it's at the startup stage, I would imagine, is that you get an opportunity to create good habits rather than break bad habits.
Yes, to some degree, but there are some that seem hard coded into us. When we first go out there into the business world, or even before that, for instance, when we're growing up, when we're at school with our parents, we're taught to have a certain way of operating, taught to, for instance, listen to other people rather than ourselves. And sure, we're learning from other people, always good. But there are some times when you kind of innately know that something isn't right. That person hasn't got the right idea or it's not right. It's part of what I teach people is listening to ourselves more and ignoring all of those things we've been taught over the years about other people always know best and always go with the flow or whatever. Sometimes we just know something and we've got to listen to it because it's our inner knowledge. That's something that's going to allow things to flow. If we're not listening to ourselves, things are going to be a lot harder. So there are always going to be little things that we need to rewire, little ideas, because there is a better way of doing business. And unfortunately, we haven't been taught a great way.
And that's a whole other episode that we could spend a lot of time talking. But one of the things that I'm intrigued about, do you have very much a continual touch point with the businesses and the business owners you work with, or is it set up the processes and then go away, or
Yeah.
does it depend?
It's very much a bespoke service. It's what the client needs. So I've worked with startup companies that just wanted me to help put in place that basic structure. And I've gone in and helped them to do that, explained why I was doing things so they could really had a footing of how to carry on the good work. I've worked with other companies that just wanted me to inject the conscious aspect into things that they already knew how to operate a business. They'd been going for a couple of years, but they just wanted help to add in the energy tools, actually. So it was a very different way of looking at things. So going forward, I am happy to be flexible and do what is of most benefit to the company. So I've got to the point where I can say, hey, I've got certain products that I can offer people like a proper business would. So my core offering would be a strategy report. I look at where the business is now. So it's very much a kind of a consultancy view on things, where the business is now, where they want to get to, and put in place the strategy to get from A to B. Doing so, I would also check in with all the people that work in that company, make sure they have a say, and get that company to recognize how important that is. Because a lot of companies, they don't really realize what you can gain when you get your employees to contribute. A, they've got some amazing ideas. B, it really helps to engage them when you ask them their opinion on things. So that's the general way I would work. But then it's up to the company as to how deeply we go in certain areas, Maybe they're more interested on putting in place things on the cultural side of things. We would focus most of our time on there. I believe that the two go hand in hand. So there would be certain things that you'd still need to look at in terms of systems in order to have your strong culture. But we would put more of our time and effort into upgrading the culture of the business. It could be a case of one aspect of it that they want to really focus on. And again, happy to do that. And once we've worked out what would be best for that company to put in place, it's then a question of them deciding how long they want to have support from me going forward. So, do they want to have regular meetings with me on a weekly basis for the next 6 months as they implement these things? So, they've always got a touch point with me. They can always ask questions or feedback. Hey, something's not quite working. How do we amend it? Anything like that. Could even be up to a year. I have actually worked with one person for a year as we put in place conscious aspects to her business. So, it really is dependent on what would be of most benefit to the clients.
Sounded to me like probably was going to be the case. One of the things that I heard when you were talking about energy systems or energy practices, and there's a little bit. What do you mean by that?
So this is a fun one. It's almost like Marmite. People either love it and they really resonate with it, or they're just
Yeah.
not ready to hear it. But it's basically the majority of energy tools that I'm talking about is about us communicating on a subconscious level. There are things that we can use within our business, within the workplace environment, such as colors, numbers, symbols, sounds, that allow us to just communicate on an extra level, on a deeper level. And we innately understand a lot of things. We have a certain response to colors, for instance. Most people understand that blue tones, colors, what we would term as the cooler colors, have a calming effect, and the redder ones are more fiery and more energizing. Then we innately know that. We didn't get taught about colors at school. So it's the fact that we react to these things, it impacts our mood and our behaviors, therefore. So if we put these things into place in the office environment, so a lot of offices are upgrading the way they operate, taking out some of the desks, having chill out spaces and collaboration spaces. What if we colored these spaces in a way that would really benefit the people working in there, that would really raise their ability to do whatever they're doing in that area? So bluer, calmer tones in the chill out area and the oranges for creativity in the collaboration area. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about energy tools. I could go on. You can think about, for instance, the clothes you wear. You could teach employees what it all means. And when they've got a big presentation and they want to really be able to articulate themselves, get them to wear blue, because that's brilliant for communication. You could also use colors in your business branding. So it can really speak to the essence of your company and show what your company is about. So, yeah, there are lots of ways to use these things. I could speak about it for a long time. But colors is the most accessible one.
Indeed, I think you're right. I think most businesses understand color related to brand. And so I would imagine it's an easy connection to go from color in their brand and their documentation and their imagery through to coloring and other areas in their
Yeah.
spaces and how they perform and how they work. So I can
Mm.
imagine that's an easier step for people to start thinking. Sounds like a great way of, again, adding to what you talk about, being conscious about things, conscious about the way you work, and also conscious of the environment you work in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there is still a bit of a mindset shift there. I remember speaking to a color consultant, so somebody that helped people find new clothes for their business wardrobe.
Yeah.
And she was very much talking about pastel colors, so dumbing down the colors and not really being able to be colorful in the office environment. And I've been there. I know that was the way it was back in the day. But now we're saying, do you know what? That's dulling the effect of the color. Okay, you don't need to be head to toe bright colors completely that clash and is an eyesore to people. But done properly with some care, it can really enhance the way you feel and potentially the people around you.
I can well imagine that color is a powerful powerful tool. That sounds interesting. And again, sounds like another longer conversation. Maybe we could build back. It sounds like you're going to become twice, maybe more times to talk, which is great. It's great to hear what you do and how you do it, and it does tie in very well to the sort of people who may be listening to this at some stage. But another thing about This is very much around helping people during the working week to keep their motivation in some way, and through learning about how other people, other small business owners and other small businesses manage the process, and learning that there are other small businesses going through the same sort of challenges, and getting some recognition that there are other ways to do things, and also people are similar and going through the same sort of challenges. So a lot of people go into business because they have a particular passion for either a product or a service or a thing that they can do for other people. And sometimes they forget that comes when you wrap it in a business environment, that comes with a lot of other kinds of things that they need to do. So have their strength in terms of the passion that they bring to what they love to do, and we can hear the passion that you when you talk about. There's also areas of the business that they know they struggle with in terms of running your own business. How have you found that? Because you transitioned into it in a way that wasn't necessarily completely planned. So what's the thing? And I could sometimes call it kryptonite. What's the one thing about the business that you probably outsource as quickly as you can, if you haven't already?
I've got to say, the thing that I found hardest is the thing that I cannot outsource, and it's up to me to just get
Okay.
on with it. And that is put myself out there, which I know a lot of people struggle with. I'm very logical in the way I think. I was a project manager for many years, like I said. I'm super organized. I've spent that time learning how businesses operate. So I was very lucky that I could see how a finance department should operate and the sort of logs that you should keep versus marketing versus sales. So I've had a bit of an additional education then in the last 5.5 years that's really allowed me to ease into it a little bit with a bit more ease and grace than a lot of people can when they start a business. But it's the putting myself out there that I've always struggled with because I've always been behind the scenes. I've been talking to people nonstop. My job has always been about communication, especially as a project manager. You're in the middle of everything. You're talking to your tech team, your testers, the ops guys are coming to you asking for new requests. You're talking to marketing because they need to know when the product's going to be launched. You're talking to the directors, like giving them updates all the time, telling them that there are issues, but no, you're going to fix it. Don't worry. But it's all within a business that it's not your head on the line.
Yeah.
Yes, you're doing an awesome job, boss, but it's not you having to go out there and be seen by people. So when I realized back in August, I've got to get myself out there, I've got to get business out there, I need to start telling people what I'm doing. At this point, I've been operating for probably a year and a half, and I'd barely spoken to people. I didn't know how to tell people I'd started a business. I felt like a bit of an idiot. Like, what would they think about me? I'd never shown any aspirations to have a business before. Had no background in it. What were they going to think about me? So it was just gradually going out there and telling the people I already knew was the first hurdle, which sounds really weird, but it really
It
was.
definitely so.
People that had known me for a dozen years, and what are they going to think about me? Like, they're the sort of person that go out and start a business, not me. But then after that, I was working with somebody on the marketing sales side of things, and she was like, okay, you need to start getting into putting videos out. And I'm not for me. I can't go on screen. I've always been behind the scenes, and suddenly having to do a little bit of a script. And it was like quite a big deal. Only a short, like just over a minute of what I do on a weekly basis. But I really had to gee myself up to get ready. And it was such a simple setup, just my iPhone. So I wasn't doing anything fancy, but oh my God. I know 4 or 5 months down the line is roughly what I'm going to talk about. Right. Ready to go. What can you see in the background? Yep. That's fine. All right. Let's go. It's
Yes.
completely different, but that sort of thing, like, terrified me, going out there and posting these things in place where anybody could come across it.
No, indeed. I can appreciate that, and I recognize that. And one of the things I see with people, especially who provide a service, they are providing a service and trying to help other people. So it's the other people that focus on a lot of what they do. And when they get to the stage when they realize that they do have to promote themselves at some level, it becomes difficult because I'm not the thing. It's what I do for other people is the thing. And you're right. It can, and it can be really hard to get over to recognize that unless you do that, the wonderful thing that you've got that help people, nobody's going to know about it. No one's ever going to find you, because it's not the olden days when if you've had a product or a service or whatever, you set up a shop somewhere or you'd stick an office somewhere with a hoarding at the outside, and people maybe walk past and maybe see you. But there's nothing like that anymore in the modern age, especially with online. Nobody's going to walk past your website by accident or your LinkedIn profile by accident, or you have to go out there and start to talk to people and remind people, because 9 times out of 10, it's getting your head around the fact that if you don't do that, this wonderful thing that you can help people with, which is where your passion is, it would never help people and they're not going anywhere. No one's going to be knowing about it. So yeah, I can really understand it. And it's good that from what I gather, you've got to the stage where JFDI is the first step, really, and just get out there and do it. Because just on a side, I remember doing these for a while back. I used to stall doing this for a long time, thinking I'm going to put it out there and people are going to come across it and really wonder what I'm doing, why am I doing it. And one of the things is getting out of your head, in that 9 times out of 10, especially when you start this, there is nobody's going to see it. Okay, I can practice, I can do these things, get used to talking in front of people without really worrying too much about the fact that people are going to stumble across it for a while. And so you can get used to being on camera. Being on camera is really hard. We never see ourselves the way that other people see ourselves, because it's always through a mirror. Our voice sounds really weird because we never hear it from the outside of ourselves. And it's all just takes a while to get used to that. And practice is the only way through it, basically. As with most things, practice is really the only way. It's lovely to hear your experiences of that, because I think a lot of people out there will resonate with it. They know they've got to do it. And there will be a lot of people listening to this who are the stage where they're thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I need to get out and do it. And hearing that does get better is a great way to help them through that.
I do believe that because what I'm doing is a little bit different now, I'm really going to have to get out there, and at some point when the business is up and running a little bit better and I can get some people in to run the business on a day-to-day basis, I think that I'm going to be out there speaking about conscious business practices and the way that CBS approaches them to a lot more people. So yeah, I've got to get used to it. I really do see that being the way forward for me. They have to be shared. They're so effective. It's bringing that human touch to business. I've got to get the word out there.
Agreed. And like I said, that's often the catalyst for people to get out and do this kind of stuff in the first place, is they realize that they've got something that they really think will help and support people. And the only way that people will learn about it is if you tell them and talk to them. And it's almost like a sort of getting out of your own way. And harping back to what you talked about in the original, if you can also start to separate yourself a little bit by thinking of yourself as an employee, maybe, but if you think of your custodial of the business, you're just a cog in the business to help the business go through, or the idea or the process or the service or whatever you're providing to people. By setting that up at the beginning, it takes away some of the hook, because sometimes one of the things I see that stops people in this is they are so closely linked to what they're providing that any kind of negativity that comes back from that feels like a negative attack on them rather than the thing they're trying to provide. And if you can start off with that little separation, like you said at the beginning, then perhaps that will help separate some of the negativity that comes across as it's not a negative to me, it's negative to the service. And so it's not right for everybody at the time when you're talking. So I can see how the benefit of treating yourself as an employee, A, because it gives you the ability to start thinking about it as a business, and B, to start thinking about looking after yourself, which we all need to do as well anyhow. Gives maybe that other level of separation between giving the message of what you're trying to provide and talking about if it was intimately part of you. And so that helps, I would imagine. So thank you for that. That's a great, like I said, a great use. And I'm glad you're coming through it. And obviously opportunities like this hopefully gives you more to start speaking about what we do. Another thing that if we step forward as well, one of the things again about this, because of what it is, the halftime huddle, is it's about the premise behind this is that we start with all good intentions on the Monday morning. We get up on Monday morning thinking we're going to make a wonderful week ahead of us. And generally, there's a lot of things that happen between Monday and Wednesday. Is generally the stage when you start to think, it's got away from me, what am I going to do? And it's very difficult when you're on your own to keep that kind of focus going. So How do you find that you keep yourself motivated during the week to get up and go and do these things and talk to people and etc.? So, what are your special little tricks that you use?
I've got to say that sometimes I feel like I start the week, or no, I finish the week feeling better about myself than when I start the
Oh,
week,
brilliant!
which I know is the complete opposite to a lot of people.
Yeah,
There you go. And it's all a case of, I guess, to my project management background. It's funny how these skills never leave you, but it's putting in place small goals. So it's not a case of me saying I need to do a webinar. If I break it down into little attainable tasks, so that during the week I would have maybe just in relation to that one thing, I would have completed 3 or 4 tasks. So by the end of the week, I'd be like, all right, great. So I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. Like, great, there's progress. I'm getting there. I'm moving forward. That's something that is super helpful for me. But it's just chunking things down and having that feeling that you're able to achieve things, that you're actually crossing things off your list and you're actually getting somewhere. There is progress. There's light at the end of the tunnel. All is well.
I can well imagine that it can seem when you've got a like long sea of big tasks to get to from A to B, then unless you break it down into small steps, it just seems even when you are taking steps forward, it does seem that still you've got a long way to go because people focus on where we're going to and what we've got to get to, what have we got to do to get to where we've got to go. We sometimes forget how much progress we've actually made to get to the place where we're at the place at the same sort of time. And the idea of forever having a mountain to climb rather than knowing that you've already climbed half the mountain behind you, then I can imagine that's, like you say, it's a great way of getting to the end of the week. So how do you record these? What sort of tools do you use to keep yourself ticking off the steps? Is it as simple as a pen and paper and a list, or do you have any particular things that you use to record your progress?
It's not much more advanced than pen and paper. I was thinking about the environment. So I'm trying
Yeah.
not to kind of whiz through loads of paper, but I'm literally using or creating a task list on my phone in the notes app. Super simple. I haven't gone out and researched anything fancy, but it means that I can put things on a list for a certain day and delete them as I go along or mark them in some way. Do what's easiest. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't need lots of expensive software to do most of these things. Just start with something simple.
Agreed. They say the same sort of thing as when someone asks you, what's the best camera to have? It's a camera you've got with you, and it's generally the one in your pocket, and it's your phone. And it's the same sort of thing. Your phone has a load of free tools that come with it, and the reminders list, you can tick things off and click things off, or the calendar with appointments in. All these kind of things can help manage your day from day to day without anything else you might need to do. And like I said, and the idea of just being able to open up your phone and click done, click not done, look in the morning and say, these are the things that are still on my list and what do I do first? Because I have a tendency, having been an ex techie, I spend a lot of time in IT working and developing stuff. I love a gadget and a tool. So I tend sometimes to have a habit of going overboard in terms of the tooling that I use. And you're right, simple is easy. I do like a pen and paper as well. It's great to hear. And you also, one of the other things, and this is just for me because I love a good read as well. And this is a question that I've nicked from someone else who does this. Have you heard of a guy called Tim Ferriss?
Yes, I have indeed.
Yes. He always likes to add one question about books because he loves books as well. And why I asked this question in this way, because I borrowed it from him. He asks more about not about what's your favorite book, because if you read a lot of books, your favorite book is generally the last book you read. Whereas he likes to understand what people are potentially giving or recommending to friends and colleagues, because that gives them more of an insight of a book that has a longer lasting impact on you and you want to share that with others. And so if I asked you that question, do you have a book or something that you would suggest as something you've given or gifted most or recommended?
I would say I've got a business book and a non-business book. All right.
Mhm.
So the business one is called Next Level Leadership by Ruth Ferenga. And it's amazing. Like I've read so many different leadership books and people go about writing them different ways. And some of them you find a few interesting snippets from them and others you don't really quite realize why you're reading it. It's not what you expected. But this book is on the money. It's really all about things that resonate with me. It's all about how to be a conscious leader, really. And all of it's full of tips and tools from people who have been there, done it, and implemented all these amazing ideas into their companies. So that's a great read.
Brilliant. We'll put it in the notes. And how did you come across this?
I think someone had recommended it
There you go.
some time ago when in some sort of work related book recommendation article I'd read or
Brilliant.
something. And I had a list of them and I asked for a number of them for Christmas. My sisters delivered. And this is by far the best one that I received. It resonates so much. And there are so many little tips and you can see it really, it works. Even in a slightly bigger company, some of these leaders are really forward thinking. They really care about their people. So it's amazing to see.
Okay. You said there was another book
Yes. So
recommendation.
non-business. So this is a bit of um, a classic, cult classic, if you will. The Celestine Prophecy by James
Okay.
Redfield. That's the one that back in the day I was buying copies and giving it out to people left, right, and centre. I came across it a long time ago. Somebody, a friend of a boyfriend at university, don't know why, said, "Oh, you're doing an English degree. You must love books. You've got to read this book." It was a random way, for it to be recommended to me in the first place. And what can I say? I didn't have much of an opinion of this guy. He just seemed to, spend all his time drinking, but he was spot on with the book.
Fair enough. I
Oh,
remember coming across the book as well. It's a pivotal book in my development past as well. I'm glad you recommended that book. It's reminded me I must go back and pick it up again because I haven't read it for a while. But it's a
yes.
very intriguing and very apt book in some of the situations that we're having now, and very apt from what I can remember of the book and what you've been talking about. Very apt for the way you work as well. And I'm also intrigued at why, because you do English and you like reading.
No, I have no idea why this guy decided that was the link. And this is why he suggested to me. I think thought I would read it because I like to read. So he thought I didn't, there was no other connection. But it is one of those books where every time you read it, you get something else from it. I think I've read it half a dozen times or more. Someone's borrowed my copy and I have no idea who borrowed it and I will never see it again. So I do need to go and get myself a new copy of it. Like I was saying, I usually gift out copies. It was so much easier. Yeah, I made the mistake of lending my own.
No, I love that story. And like I said, it's intriguing the way that the book comes to an individual person as well, because that's always an interesting story. So lovely. Thank you very much for sharing this time with us. There's loads of things I'd love to carry on talking to you with, and maybe we can find some time to add another interview to go through some of the other things you're talking about, the energy work and the other bits and bobs you're talking about, because they all sound very intriguing. I hope you have found this helpful. If anybody's listening to this at some stage, where's the best place to find out where you are, read out all about what you do and how you can help them?
Yeah, you can go to the website, which is www.consciousbusinesssolutions.co.uk. Or you can, if you want to find out more, ask me any questions, you can drop me an email at lucy@consciousbusinesssolutions.co.uk.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you again. Lovely to speak to you.